The year was 1961. The town was Rose Hill, a quiet, God-fearing place tucked away in the countryside, where secrets were a currency everyone traded, but no one admitted to owning. It was the kind of town where the postman knew your business before you did, and the rustle of curtains was the local newspaper. That's why, when the twins arrived, everyone noticed. Their names were Oliver and Owen. They were a living mirror image, identical from the precise part in their dark hair down to the polished shine on their identical leather shoes. To the outside world, they were the embodiment of childhood perfection. Always polite, always respectful, always together. Their smiles were constant, unwavering things that seemed painted on. But behind the closed doors of their new home, their mother, Eleanor, saw something else. Something that chilled her more than the drafty old house they lived in. It wasn't what they did, but how they did it. They never laughed separately. They never cried alone. Their reactions were perfectly synchronized, as if a single switch controlled two identical bodies. One afternoon, Eleanor tried an experiment. She sent Owen outside to weed the garden and sat with Oliver in the living room. She told him a silly joke, one her own father used to tell her. Oliver just stared back at her, his face a placid, unreadable mask. Silence. A few minutes later, the back door creaked open. Owen walked in, wiping dirt from his hands, and at that exact moment, both boys erupted into identical peals of laughter. The sound echoed in the quiet house, sharp and unnatural. They weren't looking at each other. They didn't need to. It was as if they shared a private, invisible world. A secret language no one else could ever hope to understand. This unnerving harmony extended beyond their home. At school, their teachers grew uneasy. Mrs. Gable once asked Oliver to name the capital of France. Before he could even open his mouth, Owen, sitting 3 desks away, answered Paris. Then, a bit later, Oliver said the exact same word, with the exact same inflection. They never consulted each other, never exchanged a glance. It just happened. The other children kept their distance. They sensed the strangeness, the invisible wall that surrounded the two boys. Oliver and Owen were the quiet, smiling enigma at the center of Rose Hill. And for a while, they were all anyone talked about. Then Lucy arrived. She was like a sudden burst of sunlight on a perpetually overcast day. Her hair was the color of honey. Her laugh was infectious, and she moved with a confidence that felt entirely out of place in the timid town of Rose Hill. She wasn't just new. She was a spectacle. Classmates orbited her. Teachers were charmed by her. Even the gruff old men who sat on the porch of the general store would stop their whittling to watch her walk by. Lucy effortlessly commanded the attention that the twins had so quietly held. She became the new center of their small universe. And the twins noticed. Oh, they noticed. Their gazes began to follow her, sticking to her like burrs on a wool coat. When she spoke in class, their smiles would linger just a second too long, becoming fixed and tight. A subtle shift occurred, a quiet change in the atmosphere. The twins, once a source of mild curiosity, now felt watchful. Their synchronized silence seemed heavier, their shared smiles less like politeness and more like a warning. The town, in its own slow way, began to notice something else, too. The twins were smiling less. Their faces, once perpetually pleasant, now often held a blank, hollow expression as they watched Lucy hold court. The mirror had cracked. It was a Tuesday in late October. A relentless, dreary rain had been falling for 2 days straight, turning the streets into murky rivers and the sky into a bruised, gray sheet. The world felt muffled and closed in. School let out, and the students scattered quickly, heads ducked under coats and umbrellas. Lucy was one of the last to leave, pulling her collar up against the damp chill. That's when they appeared. Oliver and Owen materialized from the misty rain as if they'd been waiting for her all along. They stood side by side, their matching raincoats unbuttoned, their faces pale in the gloom. "We know a place," they said, their voices a soft, blended whisper that was almost lost in the sound of the downpour. A place to play. Lucy, ever adventurous, ever fearless, hesitated for only a moment. A game on a rainy day. Why not? At the edge of town, where the neat houses gave way to tangled, foggy woods, stood an old, abandoned farmhouse. Its windows were like vacant eyes, its porch sagged like a broken jaw, and the whole town knew to stay away from it. Ghost stories clung to it like ivy. With a laugh that the rain quickly swallowed, Lucy followed the two silent boys toward the skeletal trees and the shadows of the derelict house. Her bright red coat was the last splash of color seen against the gray woods before she vanished into them. That was the last time anyone ever saw Lucy. The next morning, her seat in class was empty. By noon, her mother was frantic. By evening, the entire town of Rose Hill had become a search party. Lanterns and flashlights cut through the rain-soaked darkness of the woods. Men with grim faces and heavy boots combed every inch of the forest floor. They tore the abandoned house apart, board by board, from the dusty attic to the flooded cellar. They found nothing. No footprints in the mud, which should have been everywhere. No scrap of her red coat. No sign of a struggle. It was as if she had simply dissolved into the rain. The sheriff questioned Oliver and Owen. They sat in the sterile, brightly lit station, hands folded neatly in their laps. Their expressions were calm, their eyes clear. Their clothes were perfectly clean and dry. "We played a game," they said in unison. "Hide and seek." Their smiles were soft, polite. Then she left. Their story never changed. Not by a single word. There was no evidence, no motive, nothing to hold them on. They were just two perfect, polite little boys. Days bled into weeks. The search parties dwindled. The posters of Lucy's smiling face, tacked to telephone poles, began to peel and fade in the autumn sun. A heavy, unspoken grief settled over Rose Hill. Lucy was gone, but something else had returned. The twins started smiling again, more than before, and their laughter, it was different. Now it was lighter, brighter. It rang through the halls at school and drifted from the windows of their house on quiet evenings. And sometimes, when the wind was still and the night was deep, neighbors would pause, listening to the sound of the boys laughing from their bedroom, and they would swear, with a cold dread that settled deep in their bones, that they could hear a third voice, a girl's laugh, woven perfectly, seamlessly, in sync with theirs.